Hello.
Welcome to Packman Paranormal. I'm Ernie Pack.
Denise Pack.
And we're Packman Paranormal.
We are. I was just noticing Chris is already up there in the...
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Janet. How's everybody
Folks.
doing tonight? We have, tried to get back into the flow of doing a regular show. I think we've been on, 3 weeks in a row now?
Yeah, it's a record for us.
I know. It took a long hiatus.
It's always been on a Wednesday, too.
Yeah, we've been actually regular as of right now.
Thank you, Chris. We hope you're well, too.
Yes. Hello, Lisa. Everybody chiming in. We see you over there. We can't say hi to everybody, but we have a good friend that we met, actually, for the first time down at Bill Wilkerson and Whiskey Tango Foxtrot's
Right.
Paranormal meet and greet.
Yep, the first annual.
At the Old Stone Jail in Franklin, Kentucky last year.
And we kept promising her we were going to have her on, and things just kept getting busier and busier. So we're now back in the swing.
We are back in the swing, and we wanted to get the ghost biker, Miss Miranda Young, on, and we've got her tonight. So let's go ahead and bring her up. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Let's do that. Hello.
Howdy.
Hey, Packman. Good to see you back.
Yeah, good to be back. Good to see you, and good to see all these folks that we've missed over here too.
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone.
I'm gonna get in.
So you are working on season 4 of your series. Is it just a YouTube series or Facebook, or where all can it be found right now?
So right now it can be found on YouTube on the Ghost Biker Explorations page, as well as Facebook, and then on my website. Something new this year that hasn't happened in years past is the local Cleveland television station, Mix 104.1, is also carrying it as well. And so,
Cool.
they carry my weekly show, and then also are going to carry the new season. So with the internet, even though it's local TV, is anything really local anymore?
Right. Exactly.
So,
worldwide, girl.
Exactly. So it's exciting stuff being able to put that out there and share that with a lot of different people.
Yeah, I'm very happy for you.
I'm trying to share us now. I'm trying to
share.
I'm trying to share us
Just
now.
do
I'm not ignoring. I'm trying to
Quit
share.
talking over. We're having a conversation.
Shut up.
You just do what you're supposed to.
You were about yourself.
You heard me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you have a unique take on investigating, and I love watching your programs, and like Chris. I mean, each one is like a mini documentary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just here's the evidence I got at haunted place X or whatever. You tell the story, you talk about the history, you talk about the ride there and the scenery, and
I'm jealous, by the way. I want to join you on one of these one time.
Come on, let's do it.
I was watching the one today of the funeral home, I believe. The
Yes.
what is it called?
Southern Funeral Home?
It's
Old
down in
Southern Funeral
Mississippi.
Home.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
I was jealous.
That's definitely a great location. And, and that's the thing that's the most important to me and what I put out on my series is being able to share that history. And because, you never know if you're going to get activity there. But, two things are for certain. There's a great ride going there. And then also, that there's a great story that goes along with the location. And I've just been very fortunate that along the way, we've got some really cool activity to kind of back up some of the different paranormal claims for those locations.
Yeah, that is cool. Is that along the Natchez Trace?
That one is, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That would be just worth the trip there.
Yeah.
The drive.
I would definitely like to cover some of the stories along the Natchez Trace. Maybe season 5.
There you go. Just make it a whole tracer season.
Absolutely.
My brother who's ridden the trace a few times, he said you can't talk about the trace unless you're a tracer. But I've never ridden the trace, but I know all about it, and it's a very cool. Sounds like something I'd love to do, but I just don't have a motorcycle, so that would kind of.
I don't think I'd get on a motorcycle with him. I would ride with you. I'm not riding with him. Getting in a car with him is taking my life into my own hands. Don't even pretend like it's not.
You are so full of crap.
Well,
I used to
that's
be a
the
professional
scariest
race
part.
car driver.
Yeah, and tell us how that ended for you.
I ran out of money.
No, you also ended up with a collapsed lung.
Well, that was just one time. It was that one time. Anyway,
I always tell
so
people that's the scariest part of the investigations is the trip there, and the people that don't watch out for motorcyclists is usually the scariest part.
yes,
I need one of the little sidecars with my little goggles and my little hat thing on.
they're called helmets.
Whatever that thing is.
She is pathetic, Miranda. I'm serious. Lord.
I would
So
be
what?
cute.
Yeah.
I would
Yes,
be cute.
you would. What are some of the locations that we might see on season 4? Can you disclose any?
Season 4 is going to be primarily houses, not residential ones, but the smaller houses. In seasons past, I really like to cover the more lesser known, more regional, local type locations. And so season 4, we're getting back to that. A couple of the stories may be a little more locally known to those areas, but we're going to definitely be covering houses. And I think in this season, primarily every episode is going to be taking place in a house, which I love because I'm a solo investigator. I do a lot of the larger locations, but on the smaller ones, I'm really able to kind of get in there and cover a lot more ground since it's just myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of how, one of our favorite locations was the Lotes House down in Franklin.
Definitely.
I don't know if you've been there or not, but I love that place. Thomas
I've not
Cartwright down
yet.
there that runs it. He does.
He's phenomenal.
He's a genius when it comes to Civil War history.
Yeah, you asked Thomas anything about the Civil War.
Yeah, they were the 3rd Cavalry out of Louisiana.
He knows everything. He's like an encyclopedia when it comes to that stuff.
That's definitely one that's on one of my bucket lists. I had Nikki Edge on my weekly podcast a few weeks ago, and she shared a lot of great stories and pictures and stuff from that house. And it sounds like it's just really active with so much history.
Off the chain for us.
We got some really good stuff.
I've got a good picture that I got there. I'll have to send it to you after this.
Nikki probably showed it to her and pretending like she didn't know where it came from. Didn't you, Nikki, if you're on here? But,
that's the thing about the whole Middle Tennessee region, Franklin, and then all the way up into Kentucky, and then up in Ural's area. There's so much Civil War history. It just seems like it kind of follows that line from Middle Tennessee.
L&N Railroad. I mean, there were a lot of skirmishes along the L&N Railroad going between Louisville and Nashville and points beyond.
Yeah, we stay so busy. I keep telling him I want to have a day where we can just go to some of these places and just experience it ourselves. But there's
without a camera or a recorder.
But there's so much stuff always going on. We rarely ever get that opportunity.
Yeah,
but
you're getting plenty of opportunities.
Somebody asked if there would be any more live investigations from you.
Yeah, I think there will be. That's actually something I used to do a whole lot was live investigations. And, usually every time I went somewhere, I would do investigations or make special trips just to do lives. And I sort of in the past 3 seasons kind of stepped back from doing that because I wanted the locations to be more of a surprise. But I was doing a convention up at St. Albans, and it was a 2-night thing. The convention was actually canceled, but they invited those of us who were speaking to go ahead and come up and investigate. And so it was my first time there, and so I just documented the whole thing live. And we had, a great turnout on there and had actually some really cool activity. So I'm hoping this year to actually be doing some more lives. Maybe one season I've actually been kicking this idea around of actually doing a full live season. That, of course, that takes a little bit of time as far as traveling and a little bit of coordination. But yes, there'll definitely be some more lives this year.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Well, when you go to these locations, do you most of them have stories around them. Obviously, that's how you get to know them. Some of them have even been in books and stuff. Do you sit and read all of that and research like online? Do you actually call the people there? Like, how much do you want to know before you go in?
As far as the actual history, I like to know as much as I can, just because, if it's a commercial location, you just have limited time. So I like to be able to make the most of that time. And because I am on the bike, I'm always having to pack kind of light. So I always try to really tailor my tools based on the history that I'm learning. As far as like the hot spots and different types of activity people have gotten, I really don't like to know as much of that, just because I don't really want to be sort of swayed. A perfect example of that is Willow's Weep in Indiana. And I know a lot of the folks in the chat room have been to that location. I've got Dave's books, and I know there was a lot of different TV shows on it. I've researched some of the different history and some of the alleged stories that came out of there. But as far as like actually reading his book and about the investigations, I actually waited until after I had investigated there, just because I really didn't want to be swayed by some of the different encounters that people had there. I wanted to have my own experience.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Lisa's got a question here. What would be your most memorable moment while ghost hunting, and has anything ever scratched or harmed you?
That's a great question. Thank you, Lisa. I have actually on 2 different occasions been scratched. I've not put it in the episode, but I do speak about it at several different locations. One of them in particular was Revenant Acres in Indiana. I was kind of drawn to that location just because there was a lot of different stories about it, but there was really no history as to why
it looks peaceful.
Yeah. And
I saw your pictures and stuff. It looked very peaceful. And
it was. And, I always like to cover a couple darker locations, even though when I go, I want to go more for the history. But I am intrigued by some of the darker ones. And so when I went there, actually spent the night, it was part of a 2-night trip. We were investigating at that location. And then of all places, we investigated at a nudist colony the next night. But
bet there was some scary stuff there.
That was, yeah. It was unlike anything I've ever investigated. But on that particular night, the stories go that the entity that stays in there goes by the name of Seven, and it is rumored to be very negative toward women. And so this one I did actually kind of prepare for a little bit as far as some of the hauntings, since it was rumored to be so dark. But I did end up coming out with some bruises and actually a bite mark after that one. And we were actually able to corroborate what happened with some of the comments that were happening on the spirit box. And it was really interesting. I think that's episode 3 of season 2. And you can actually go back and hear some of these responses, the names that it was calling me and things that it was saying that it was going to do are not things that you would pick up on a typical radio station. So I had, on that occasion, it looked like fingerprints on my legs, and the bite mark was actually on my butt. And I didn't show that on the video, but like I said, I have shown it and spoken about it. And then some of my theories as to why this location was so haunted. And then also, I've investigated over at Brushy Mountain on 6 different occasions. And on one occasion in particular, I ended up getting what looked like a handprint on my neck. It was like a smack almost. Wow. And kind of like when someone takes and does like a burn on you. Yeah. That's how that looked on my neck. But other than that, I've not really had anything exceptionally negative or anything. Just those occasions.
When we went to Brushy, we actually had a person on our team get slammed down and drug across the floor in the cafeteria.
Wow.
Yeah. It got a little hostile.
Yeah, the cafeteria got crazy with us up there back in January?
December.
December.
That location, I've been able to see it evolve because I'm from not too far from there.
Mhm.
And so out of the 6 different occasions I've investigated it, 5 of them I investigated, it wasn't even open. The first 3, they didn't even have the restaurant or any of the stuff built. They actually had some of the buildings up that they had torn down. And so it's been interesting to see just how much that's evolved over time and changed with the construction.
He's pushing me off the screen. You see that?
Well, I'm the star of the show. Me and Miranda are the stars here.
Yeah, sure you are.
Jamie and them do a good job down there.
Love Jamie.
We had a blast when we were down there.
Yeah.
She invited us back, and we've been meaning to go back, but then Waverly happened, and the season started, and we have not made it back yet. But we will be back, Jamie. Leanne wants to know what's on your bucket list. What future location that you haven't visited yet?
Oh man, so many. Since for me, a lot of it, revolves around the bike and actually revolves around the trip. I would love to take a week-long trip and travel Route 66 and investigate some of those locations along that line. Either that or the Mississippi Blues Trail, and just really document the trip, document some of these different locations that are there along the way. Those would definitely be 2 of my bucket lists.
Yeah. I'd like to hit some like Old West stuff too, like Tombstone and
Yes,
Virginia City, Nevada, and places like that. There's a lot of good hauntings and history associated with some of those places too.
and it's so different. It's so different depending on the region of the country that you go to. And I'm going to be out there at Las Cruces at a Paracon in New Mexico, and we're hoping it's all going to depend on how that schedule boils down. But I'm hoping to investigate a couple different locations there in Albuquerque and then Mountain Air area, and maybe those will probably end up being live investigations. So we're hoping if the schedule works out just right to be able to do some of those out there.
That'd be cool. We'll be watching for that.
Definitely.
That'd be nice.
I know Ernie's wanted to go to the Birdcage Theater. Do they do they do investigations there? I looked it up and it didn't look like they had paranormal investigations there.
I know you can do tours there, and I know of people that have investigated there. I guess you got to, talk to the right people when you're there.
Anybody knows the right people? Hook
Yes,
us up.
let us know.
One of the places we've been that, because I'm thinking of outdoorsy stuff because the bike makes me think of outdoor stuff. Lake Shawnee Haunted Amusement Park in West Virginia.
Yes.
That is one of our favorite all-time places, I think.
Yep.
I have been wanting to go to that one. I was up not too far from there, and for some reason the weather and stuff was not right when I was up there. But I know you all were just recently up there, correct?
We were there
we filmed in November with Portals to Hell, but it didn't air till here recently, and you've got a good 30 seconds of us nodding our heads.
Of us doing this, yeah. We actually did talk a lot, and I think we were articulate and said good stuff, but they didn't. What had happened was the evidence that Jack and Heather got didn't match the evidence that we got, because we got awesome evidence. They had a balloon pop. So they didn't want to be upstaged by us. So they didn't show us. That's what it was.
That's what happened, really.
I like that story. I like that.
But anyway, Lake Shawnee is an amazing place, and Chris takes good care of you out there. I highly encourage you to go out there.
Yeah, it's
just a cool place to go camp.
Oh yeah, I would say so.
That's basically what it is. It's a big field.
And you don't have any of the city contamination, no lights or anything.
I mean, you can see galaxies and, to infinity and beyond up there. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I would love to check that location out, because for me, and I would imagine you could take some great photography up there, because that's kind of how I started with my journey with Ghost Biker and everything, was through urban exploration and taking photographs and stuff. And so anytime I get the opportunity to visit a location like that, just for the photography and the history alone, would be such a fun trip. I wouldn't even be sad if I didn't get activity, but I would imagine
That's what makes it so phenomenal. I'm like, I could go, not even planning it as a
and
paranormal
not even
trip.
take a REM pod or anything with me. Just go and hang out and
what the
walk
night
around.
The night we went, we had, was it a meteor shower?
We had the comet last summer remember the comet went over.
Mm-hmm.
We had the comet. Go right. It was right in plain view all night. There was a meteor shower. And the International Space Station passed over.
That's cool.
So we spent most of the night with our cameras aimed straight up, but we still got some great evidence at the same time.
Yeah.
But,
well, that seems like when you get it,
What's that?
I said that seems like when you get some of the best evidence is when you're able to go in without that stress or pressure of, oh, I'm going to be filming, I'm going to be doing this investigation. Just kind of go in, relax. That always seems like that's when you get the best stuff.
Yeah. When you stop focusing and just
we
have a conversation.
Got one of our best paranormal photos there, and I don't even think we were really planning on getting a whole lot of anything. And we started looking at the pictures and was like, "Wow,
whoa,
we got something awesome!"
Look at that.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Yeah, I love those outside locations. Because around here, and I'm sure it's the same way up there in Kentucky, is there's cemeteries just everywhere you look. All these different mountain cemeteries, and I know we don't really have we've got the rules, but it's not as strict here as far as going into the cemeteries after dark. And so that's some of the best places to go and just be able to sit down and really be able to do research and ask questions. And some of those outside cemeteries, the outside investigations like that are just the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's when last year when COVID was shutting everything down and people weren't doing anything, we're right in the middle of several cemeteries, and every night about 9 o'clock it'd be like, well, want to take a drive to a cemetery? It'd be like, which one? We were out every night.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it didn't really stop us too much last year because we did travel to Indiana and North Carolina. That's been the good thing about all of this through COVID is because you are essentially social distanced and usually smaller crowds. So
exactly.
Yeah.
The only problem I had was when I went up to Indiana, the location didn't have a bathroom and the gas stations weren't open. So we were kind of stuck.
Yeah, that could be bad.
Yeah. Did that have that wasn't around the time of the nudist colony thing? Right?
No.
Because I was going to say, what's stopping you?
That was the year before. And yeah, like I said, that was an interesting one. Unlike, and it was actually quite active. I was exhausted from investigating Revenant Acres the night before and really didn't know what we were going in to do. This was actually a residential case. And we were going to turn it over I was traveling with a friend and we were going to turn it over to somebody else in the area. But we figured since we were up there, why not just check it out? And so she did not reveal to me that it was a nudist camp up until we were pulling in. Yeah, so I was like, well, that's a twist. So it was interesting. They were actually being in Indiana, being in October. A lot of the people had gone down to Florida. So there wasn't very many people on the property or inside the entire encampment. And so in her particular property, she and her husband, they kind of gave us run of their location, and it was some pretty interesting stuff that happened there.
I'm thinking nudist colony in Indiana in October.
And most of the residents with beach bodies were in Florida.
Yeah.
Just saying.
There may have been about 6 or 7 people on the property, but that was really about it. And then just the history up there. They had their own natural spring. They had a lot of caves and stuff. So cool. Just right where they had built it, there was some interesting stories that may have kind of led into an increase in some of the activity that this particular family was having.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't do residentials. Yeah. But last week we got a call from a guy that was seriously freaked out.
Scared.
And scared. He was him and his whole family had packed up and they were sleeping on his mom's floor. They wouldn't go back in the house, and they had a house full of kids, and he was seriously tore up. So we dropped everything and went down there to check it out. And he's got some real activity. You know, a lot of times with residential cases, you know as well as I do.
Which is why we quit doing them, because I got tired of weeding out the weirdos.
Yeah. That's what I was getting. You're just dealing with someone that's a little cuckoo, or you know, there's something else going on that's not paranormal. But no, they had some legit activity, and we've actually put him in touch with Casey Scruggs and Night Stalkers to go up there and see if they can help him out. But
I used to do residentials a lot when I was with a team, and since I've gone out on my own, the Sunset Hill house was the last residential that I did, but it was kind of unique in its own way because the people didn't live in that house. They had a haunted relic stored in there, and no one had lived in it for at least 12 years at the time. And so, so I took that residential on, and I mean, it literally became a year-long case, and we had to get a demonologist involved and everything. And that's part of the reason why I'm very particular about actually taking a residential case on, and just really don't do it much anymore just because of that reason, because it's a lot of people don't realize just how big of a responsibility that is.
Exactly.
And, you know, again, you've got a lot that you essentially have to weed out. There has to be a lot of honest interaction between the investigator and between the folks at the location, because there are so many factors that falls into play. And residentials are cool because you do get the opportunity to kind of, you know, flex your creative muscle and try to really find out, you know, what's going on. But the other side of it is it's just a lot of responsibility, and you kind of become this family's lifeline, if you will, to where they're constantly reaching out to you. And, you know, it's a lot of responsibility to put on someone. So a lot of the time, what I'll do is there's people that I pass those on to just for that reason.
That's normally what we do, but this guy was desperate, and we didn't have time to bring anybody in.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted to get down there and at least, you know, let him know someone was, you know, working on it. And we told him that night that, you know, we'd probably be passing it on to someone else.
Well, we told him before we
wanted to give him some
went that it's not really what we do anymore. But, and, you know, Casey and Night Stalkers, all of them are our friends. We don't want to just, you know, it's a couple-hour drive for them. We kind of wanted to check it out a little bit before we passed it on, just to make sure we weren't sending them into something crazy.
Yep.
Exactly. And I'm the same way. It's like the local ones, I don't mind checking out. I do a lot of local, I guess you could call them residential, but a lot of local businesses as well. But a lot of it depends too, for me, on how they approach. You know, is it one of those situations where they just kind of want to know what's going on and help as far as, I guess, debunking, or I guess helping themselves prove that they're not crazy. Or, you know, can they not coexist and live in harmony with this? Is it actually causing harm and causing problems? So I don't cross anything over, or, you know, cleanse houses or anything like that. For me, that's not my place. But if it's a situation like that, then that's one that I'm definitely, you know, I've got different folks that I'll put them in contact with. And then they also have their regional network, because I get reached out to by a lot of people that aren't in the area or not local.
Yeah, that happens.
We get that too.
Folks know that we're into the paranormal. I don't know how they would know, but they reach out to us all the time. Hey, we got a demon in my apartment, you know, and I'm like, yeah, well, that's not good.
That sucks.
Exactly. I mean, why do you think it's a demon? You know, and those are questions. I have a big list of questions that if I look into a case before I pass on, that I try to ask, you know, and then also if there's been other investigators in and that sort of thing. But the businesses, those are ones I think that are a lot of fun, because most of the time, again, they're not a problem spirit, I guess. It's more, there's some type of history as to why they're there, whether it be based on the land or something that happened in the business. And then it's just the people who are in that business day in, day out, and they're living with this and the things they're experiencing. For me, those are a lot of fun, but I categorize those as residential, but they're really different.
I know exactly what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
Well, I learned way back about 2 years ago not to let Ernie do the screening himself when it comes to residentials.
Oh, okay. We'll just leave it at that.
You want to tell her why?
Because we wound up dealing with a nutcase, but that's okay.
He ended up having me at a cemetery with a guy who started out the story he gave Ernie, because, Ernie took him at face value, was that his ex-girlfriend that he was still very close to had been ruled a suicide, but he was pretty sure that she had been murdered. And she was reaching out to him. And Ernie ends up getting me in the middle of this cemetery with this guy that really just still had the hots for his dead girlfriend, and was stalking her family and telling me. And then he started hitting on me and calling me day and night, like my phone ringing at 1 o'clock in the morning. So
that's actually how we developed a relationship, was by faking it to create a diversion for this guy to stay away from Denise.
Gotcha.
That's kind of how that happened.
Well, it's amazing the people that will reach out. And I had one of those cases that I ended up turning down, and I actually turned it down at the 11th hour because I was planning. And my thing is, I never, if I'm doing a residential, and again, it depends if it's a business or whatever, because those businesses sometimes are the ones that have the interesting stories. But residentials, if it's somebody that's wanting help, those aren't ones that I'll highlight on my episodes, because the reason that I'm there is to help, essentially, not to publish their story and put it out there. So I'm really strict about that. And instantly we found out that this person was faking it. I had somebody call me at 3 a.m. and tell me, and I was actually going to make a 7-hour drive to the location. Yeah. And so they said they were faking it. And one of the big things they wanted to do was they wanted to know if I was coming alone, and they wanted to know if I was going to be doing filming and such. And so it's like, on these, I never come alone, and no, we're not filming. And so we learned pretty quick. We kind of had a weird feeling about it when we were doing the research, but kind of had a weird feeling about that. And come to find out, that's really what they wanted was, either me by myself or to be on the show.
Be on the show.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell when, did you see Chris's comment? Nothing brings people together like faking it in a cemetery. Yeah, you can kind of tell sometimes when people want you to come in for these residentials, and it's something easily debunked, and they won't take your answer because they want it to be something so bad. That's usually a big hint as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of red flags, that if you just watch careful enough. And thankfully, in this situation, someone who had investigated there before actually reached out to me. And, the only thing I can say about it is trust your gut. And we had a weird gut feeling to begin with, but definitely trust your gut, because usually if something doesn't feel right, it's usually not.
Well, Ernie was told that night that he was no longer allowed to screen clients alone.
I could have fired you from the team for that, too.
We weren't even a team.
Well, I could have not created a team.
He created a team because he wanted to get me up here to Louisville.
Whatever.
He used that. That was his weird. Here
past. We go again. This show. It's not about you, Denise.
His weird pass at making a move on me was, "Hey, I work at Waverly Hills, and I don't know anybody else in the whole world that would want to do this case with me. So, would you like to drive up from Tennessee and help me?"
I hardly ever run into any ghost hunters when I'm at Waverly Hills. What do you think we have up there? Ghosts? Jason Hale said some women marry for money and some marry for a haunted TB sanatorium.
He was
Priorities.
Anyway, so what? I know you've been to Waverly in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What is your take on Waverly Hills? What do you think of it?
Waverly was a lot of fun. And that was one, for me, I was there, it was March of 2018. And it was great. It was one of those that for me, and I'm sure you guys hear this a lot. It's overwhelming almost just, as you pull in. We did a couple different lives that night, and that was the first time I did, one of the experiments I like to do is with the dowsing rods blindfolded and the headphones on, almost kind of like a combination of the dowsing with the Estes. Mm-hmm. And so did that in the morgue and had some really cool responses. We had printed off some different pictures, and the guy that was with me on the team. And so we did this live. They put pictures throughout and asked questions, and we had people asking questions on the live, and the rods were actually pointing to the pictures. We had like a random picture of a dog, and we were like, can you point that to the dog? Now I had no idea where all of this was, and things were pointing directly. I mean, they were very intelligent responses.
We might need to try that.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, the morgue was very active. The body chute was really active. We had, there was 3 of us that was down there, and we had one stand at the very bottom, one in the middle, and one at the top, asking these questions. We actually had something charge at us, and you could hear the footsteps run down.
Not unusual. We had the FBI, the Louisville FBI SWAT team came for their own private. They weren't there for any crazy reason. They came on their own private investigation, and they came in, put on their tactical gear, and their first stop was the body chute. And we watched them go in there. We're up on the dock up above, and you could hear them walking through the little tunnel to get down through there. They were in there, 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Tell her, demonstrate what we heard after 5 minutes. 8 guys, okay? 8.
After about 5 minutes, we heard, all of them come running out.
I believe that.
I went down the steps and met them when they came out, and I was like, what happened? They said, dude, that's a threat we can't neutralize, okay? I said, you all are a SWAT team. They said, you can't shoot a ghost, and there was one charging at us, and I don't like it.
That's what this was. It was so clear, and we could tell where it was at based on the 3 recorders and the response. And so we captured it on all 3, but we could tell that it was kind of somewhat in the middle, kind of going toward the end, between the middle and the end. And then we got a very clear child's voice there in the body chute. And then, and I hope I'm not labeling the area wrong, but the area where I think what we were told was where they would store the bodies, not the morgue. What was that?
The auxiliary morgue. We had a second.
Yes. Is it like a blue room or?
Yes.
Okay.
Like a big conference room, like with blue curtains.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we were in that room, and we had a lot of disembodied voices in that room where we were actually hearing them in the moment. And we actually had one, as we were talking, that said, "I'm sorry." And so that area and the morgue and the body chute was what was most active for us. And it was just that we did get some up on that 5th floor, but it was windy at that time, so it was kind of hard for us to distinguish on our recorders if it was, noise contamination up there. But yeah, those areas were very cool, and it's somewhere people definitely need to check out, because if just being there, even if you're not investigating.
The history of it and just seeing the building. I mean,
there's never a dull moment.
Sight.
Never a dull moment.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure. And the lives.
We're there 5 to 7 nights a week, and it never. We get exhausted, but it never gets old.
Ever. Oh, I'm sure. And that's what's so cool about that is you all are actually able, being connected to a location like that, you're actually able to do true paranormal research by going in. I mean, we'll go visit places, but and if you can go multiple times, that's great. But to really get in there, be able to research the stories, be able to have this essentially daily communication with these spirits,
Exactly.
you're really able to do true research at that point.
Yeah, and that's kind of how Sarah's story has been put together. You know, it's
we are. We're not only doing our own paranormal research, like everything we find or run across, we're Google, we're the historic club, the Filson Club, and every piece of evidence we can get our hands on, everything we run across inside of Waverly, we're trying to piece it all together. So we're very fortunate in the fact that we have the time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that was to kind of circle back to the question that was asked earlier about the research and stuff. As far as the historical research, anytime I can talk to somebody that's there at the location or actually do, I mean, of course, we're kind of limited sometimes to Google, but if I can go back and try to back up some of that history I always love going to the archives and even the local cemeteries, at those places, if, to be able to go and see where some of these folks are buried. Anytime that you can get that hands-on research. And I always tell people, it's like if my investigation, if I'm going to be there 8 hours or if I'm going to be there a couple days and then going through and listening to the evidence, I always like to try to double that time doing the research beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big part of, a lot of people come in. I mean, I see folks that come to Waverly and they talk about how it's a bucket list thing. And this can be any location, but, just with my experience at Waverly, they talk about it's a bucket list thing and they've been dying to come here and they come in the door and they don't know a thing about the place. And I'm like, you haven't researched anything? They think it's a sanitarium. They think, they're
on the flip side of that too, you've got people that think they're doing research that are looking up the urban legend stories and a lot of the things, and we know firsthand just because, and things are changing daily, but a lot of the stuff you read online about stories at Waverly are not true, not at all. So, and we have some people that come in and they're like, well, we don't want the tour. We already know everything we need to know, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, no, please. It hurts us for people.
Sounds like a certain TV show.
It hurts us for people not to want the tour because these spirits mean so much to us that we want to tell their story. And when people come in and don't want to hear their story, the first thing we always say is she was a victim. Do not go up there and talk to her like she hung herself. She was a victim. Yeah. And that's one thing we want to make sure because it aggravates us so much.
Yeah.
For them to just, because to me, it's disrespectful when they're in there talking to them in the form of some of the things that's been told.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And that's why I think you have to be careful about, researching other teams' experiences and stuff. And that's why I don't always want to know just for that purpose and then I always like to do the day tours or at least get the walkthrough beforehand because these are the people who are in those locations every day. They've experienced so much. They've talked to other investigators. So what does that hurt? It's
exactly.
I feel that's how it should be because, again, for me, and then there's a lot of teams that it's about the thrill. It's about the paranormal. The paranormal is what I always say is kind of third for me. It's like it's the history and being in that location and just getting to be there in a place that not a lot of people are getting to be at. And then also being able to sit down and if they're able to, if you're able to get activity, it's really, truly an honor when a spirit chooses to, communicate with you and share their story.
And we've had the most active season yet, I think, at Waverly. And I think part of it is because we're trying to get the real stories out. Because one thing we have been expressing, and Ernie says it on almost every tour when we're giving these stories, we're not trying to de-ghost the place at all. We are trying to get them acknowledged and respected. We are a haunted location, not a haunted attraction.
Right.
We do a haunted attraction in October.
Yeah, those are people, not characters in a horror movie or anything like that. I mean, they're people. And they got feelings, they got stories of their own, they got their own history, and they went through hell in most cases. And
exactly. And that's why it was real important in my last season. It was episode 2 when I had covered the 1944 troop train accident in Jellicoe, Tennessee. I made sure I was able to go at the very end because this is a location that hadn't been investigated. The history of this location and the story was really, I mean, it was just kind of, if you go and visit the museum there in Jellicoe, they had a lot of information. But I just happened to see it when I was on a motorcycle ride, just this little 8x8 sign that was up on the road that said 1944 troop train accident viewing site. And so the actual monument that was down on the rocks where this train had crashed, it was put up by the Boy Scouts, and just due to weather and everything, it had actually been washed away. And so when I hiked down there, because it was a pretty treacherous hike down, I really wasn't expecting to really get anything. And so we got some pretty cool evidence. I mean, nothing earth-shattering or really creepy or anything, but just some really good solid evidence that there was something unexplained going on. And so for me, being able to share this story and this piece of history that a lot of people don't know about, that was, I think it was within the top 25 troop train accidents in the United States. And so to be able to share that and then be able to go, I was able to find the pictures of all the soldiers who had perished. And so I actually did a little memorial at the end showing that, because I think that sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, it's easy to go in, spend an evening or a day or a week or whatever doing these investigations and really lose sight that we're actually talking to people who were human at one time. And so, so for me, it was real important to be able to do that, just to show that, because I think we do lose sight of that from time to time.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And that was that's my favorite episode of yours, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember watching that one.
I like that a lot.
That's one of my favorites.
Sherry's asking about the lights off. Sherry, at Waverly, we are known for shadow figures and shadow play. We encourage people not to even use a flashlight, only use it in the stairwells. And once you get on the second floor up, it looks like an operational hospital. If you don't use that flashlight, you see people walking all over the halls.
Up and down the halls, crossing the halls, standing in the hall, talking to one another.
It's crazy.
That was the other thing that I was going to say there is just the shadows, just that alone was amazing, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I very rarely hear shadow, if nothing else.
Yeah. And I always tell people, like last weekend, apparently one of the nights on the public overnight, they didn't have a whole lot of activity going on. And, for people that don't do this much, they see the TV shows and it looks like, ghost hunters went in this place one night and they caught 4 Class A EVPs or something. Mm-hmm. Well, I got to tell you, those people have the best of equipment for one, and for two, they spend a week to get 4 or 5 pieces of evidence. So if you get one decent thing happening in a night, you've done something. It's not, it doesn't come in waterfalls. It just doesn't, ghosts aren't making it rain evidence on you or anything. It's not going to happen like that. It would be nice if it did. And occasionally, it's more active than others, but you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And that's always one of the stressful parts about, kind of putting episodes together is you spend all this time, going in, putting your story together, doing your history and your research and planning everything out. And then I know I used to always get stressed when I would go if I was filming, because you kind of likened it to, it's like, are your actors going to show up, for your show? Yeah. And so, but I found that I had to really take a step back And because most of the time I get pretty good evidence when I go to these locations, but I had to really change my mindset of like, if I go in, it's okay if I don't get any activity, because that's realistic. And, it's like, yes, you've put in all this time and effort. You're in this location. You've got this essentially one shot, to make sure you capture. Just make sure the recorders are going. Make sure the audio is going. If you capture it, great. If something happens, that's awesome. But for me, I kind of tend to think when things don't happen, that sort of validates the times that things do happen. Because if we had stuff happening all the time, people, that's just not realistic.
That's what I was going to say. That's what way back in the day when TAPS first hit the scene, because we know they're kind of the ones that paved the way for all of us. I think what impressed me the most about them is they weren't getting evidence on every episode. Yeah. And that's what made me admire them, because I was like, these guys are real.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I like about the lives, is the fact you don't know what's going to happen. And, there's the creep factor in it, to where you're experiencing this, the people are experiencing this, they don't know what you're going to see around the corner. And when the things happen, it seems more authentic, because it's happening in the moment. And so that's why those have always been good for me. And then if it doesn't happen, because I've had several lives where nothing's happened, but it's just creepy and cool being able to be in the location.
Yeah.
There'd be nothing better than a fan of the Ghost Biker to be watching one of your lives and see you get a really genuine jump scare and scream.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And those things happen, and you can't predict them. But, a door will slam right next to you every now and then, and, you'll jump. You'll scream. Last week at Waverly, I had a group of people up there, and I was trying to play Mr. Cool because they had pulled me into the building because they were scared. And I was trying to be Mr. Cool Ghost Hunter, and say, watch the shadow figure coming out of the room down the hall. And right behind us, we heard, ah. And I was like,
But isn't that awesome when that happens?
Yes.
I'm kind of like you guys. I very rarely do I get scared. I'll get startled. You do. And I'll get startled. But for me, there's nothing like that when something happens that can just make you kind of levitate off the ground just a little bit.
Maybe wet your pants just a little, maybe.
Just a little bit, yep.
I haven't had that happen for a while. It's been a while since
I'm going to have a talk with my friends up on the hill.
Which it's funny to us because we see all these people coming in with their flashlights and they're going in pairs. I walk around that place without a flashlight by myself all night long, and it does not faze me. So it's just, I can't imagine getting scared right now. I know it's going to happen eventually, but it's like, I can't even remember the last time I've had something happen.
Yeah.
I think, because I'll sleep in some of these different locations, and I slept the last time I investigated there at the old Southern Funeral Home. I was completely by myself, and I did a live and then stayed by myself. And I was a little uneasy. That was probably the last place that I felt. I was up on the second floor, and you just felt like there was something watching you outside of some of the different rooms. Yeah. And it was weird because if I was down on the first floor, it didn't bother me. If I was up on that second floor, I was just a little uneasy.
People were downstairs having a party and you couldn't get out.
Exactly. You've got to go through it to get to the outside. So that was definitely one of those situations.
Abe is asking about getting punched or scratched. He missed your comment about getting bit on the butt.
Yeah,
Bernie just got scratched last week, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have it happen occasionally.
And I think a lot of the time too, for me, for the most part, again, I'm not going and seeking out malevolent spirits. And of course, that doesn't mean we don't find them, but, it's a lot of the time, it's just something that might be a little bit aggressive or might be trying to get your attention. At least that's been from my experience.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely.
Yeah, we're not real quick to scream malevolent anything
Right.
if we get something, because it's like, something's trying its best and it just happened to muster enough strength. Maybe the 1st thing it did was grab a hold of you the wrong way,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I mean, in some of these locations, when you're looking at places like Brushy and some of these, I mean, they held negative people. So,
Yeah.
so for them to do something negative to you while you're there, I mean, that it just makes perfect sense. It doesn't necessarily, now I'm not saying that there's not dark entities at some of these places,
yeah,
but
definitely.
a lot of the time, I mean, if you were negative in life, you're probably going to be negative after. So, it's kind of to go to a jail or to go to a location that has negative people in it. I can completely understand why, you might get scratched or get some kind of negative EVP from it.
Well, also too, on the flip side of that, you could have somebody that was really nice in life and somebody spent 20 years telling the wrong version of their story. So they start getting
so
angry.
They're up there going, no, that's not what happened. Wham, and slam a door or something. Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine. I mean, it would be just, sitting there. If they are intelligent, like we've found them to be from, some of our different experiments and stuff we've done, that would have to be horrible to be there in a location to hear someone day in and day out telling your story incorrectly and you can't do anything about it. I mean, that would just, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
D Hoot is asking, as you visit a location often, do you feel the spirits communicate more often? Well, we say yes, because we're with the same spirits night after night after night after night after night. They know us.
And I think that's the case too, because a lot of the locations that I investigate and highlight are a lot of locations that maybe the spirits have not been investigated. And so using some of these different tools that we use, they may not know how to use them. They may not know it may be from a different time frame than what they're used to. So I think definitely as we go and investigate these places more and they get comfortable with us, get more comfortable with the techniques we're using, I think that they definitely start to communicate more.
We actually have people sometimes that come and get us when they're not having activity and ask us to come into the building, and they'll go for hours with nothing, and we'll walk in and bang, 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 bang. It's
that's true.
I mean, if it's like if these were people who once lived, I mean, you just have to think about it. It's like we all have people that we connect with more, that are our friends or that we feel more comfortable with. So I think it's the same way in the spirit world. Some people they call them magnets, but they may not necessarily be a magnet. They may just be more comfortable with the particular spirit that's there.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess it's time. We've let the hour get away from us. We could just keep on talking, but we need to
have you on again.
We need to hop.
It took so long to do it. Now we got to do it again. We got to do a George too. I saw him chime in.
Yeah, he chimed in. He was probably looking to see what.
Yeah, he's probably sitting there like, yeah, okay. But Miranda, it's been great talking to you, and we will be seeing you at the Para-Unity event.
Before we go off, why don't you list a few of your upcoming places that we can find you? Plug yourself real quick here.
Sure. So I'm the most active on the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook page. That's where we have the lives as well as the different, the weekly podcast and, any other episodes or whatever we put out. So you can find me on the Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube channel, Facebook page, www.ghostbikerexplorations.com. And you can follow my photography on Instagram under Runaway Vixen.
All right. I'll need to follow you on that. I love your photography, by the way.
Yeah,
thank you.
She's got a good eye.
We need to get you and Chris together back on here, because I noticed Chris was chiming in and I really enjoyed talking to her, and we haven't talked to her forever. We need to get together soon outside of this.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I love collaborating with them.
We'll do that for a while down there at the Old Stone Jail until Billy shoves a wiener in our hand or something. All right. We'll talk to you later. You have a good night.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be talking to you.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you next week. We appreciate it. Everybody be good to one another. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.